No one noticed him at first. He sat quietly at the far end of the room while voices overlapped. Decisions were rushed, and time felt tight. The meeting had already started, and in everyone's mind, the outcome was already decided. Or so they thought. Every suggestion came from the same few people. Confident voices, familiar faces. Power spoke loudly here. When his turn almost came, someone casually moved on, as if his presence was optional, forgettable. He didn't interrupt. He didn't raise his voice. Instead, he opened a thin folder on the table, one no one had bothered to ask about. Inside were details no one else in the room had noticed, and a question that would soon make everyone uncomfortable. As the discussion heated up, a mistake slipped through, small but dangerous. Most missed it. He didn't. And when he finally spoke, it wasn't long or dramatic. Just one sentence. Calm, clear, precise. The room fell quiet, not because he demanded attention, but because what he said didn't fit the plan anymore. I shifted. Someone checked their notes again. Another leaned back in their chair, suddenly unsure. Something had changed. The room grew uncomfortable. Not loud, not dramatic, just quiet enough that everyone felt it. A few people started paying attention, sensing something was off. The person at the center of it all didn't argue or explain. Instead, they paused, took a slow breath, and did something unexpected that made even the skeptics hesitate. What followed wasn't a speech or a confrontation. It was a calm, deliberate action, simple on the surface but heavy with meaning. Suddenly, small details others had missed earlier began to connect. Expressions shifted. A couple of people exchanged looks, realizing they might have judged too quickly. One by one, the energy in the space changed. The confidence that once filled the room softened into uncertainty. Someone tried to interrupt, but it was too late. The moment had already turned. The truth wasn't being announced loudly. It was revealing itself quietly. That's when the real realization hit. This wasn't about proving anyone wrong. It was about showing something real. The same people who had ignored the situation earlier were now fully focused, their attention locked in, waiting to see what would happen next. And just as the tension peaked, the story took a turn no one had prepared for. Not dramatic, not explosive, but powerful enough to flip the entire situation. The room fell silent again, this time for a very different reason. Someone finally asked the question everyone had been avoiding. Not out loud at first, just a hesitant glance, a quiet wait. Under their breath, the person who had been ignored earlier didn't rush to answer. That pause alone said more than any argument could. When the explanation came, it wasn't defensive. It was thoughtful. Piece by piece, the bigger picture emerged, showing how earlier assumptions had quietly led the group toward a risky outcome. No blame, no drama, just clarity. That's when the room shifted completely. People who had been confident minutes ago now looked uncertain. Notes were rewritten. Timelines were reconsidered. The decision everyone thought was final suddenly felt fragile. One senior voice spoke up, not in authority but in honesty. They admitted something rare in a room like this. They had overlooked an important perspective. Heads nodded slowly. The silence this time wasn't tension, it was respect. And in that moment, the person no one had taken seriously wasn't trying to stand out anymore. They had already changed the direction of everything, without raising their voice, without demanding recognition. The meeting resumed, but it wasn't the same anymore. The rush was gone. The confidence had softened into care. Every voice mattered now, including the one that had almost been missed. When the final decision was made, it wasn't dramatic. No applause, no speeches, just a quiet agreement that this path felt right, safer, smarter, more considered. As people began to gather their things, a few stayed back. Not to congratulate or question, but to listen. They wanted to understand how something so important had almost slipped by unnoticed. The person who had been ignored earlier simply smiled and said something small, something human. Sometimes the quiet details matter most. No lesson forced, no moment stretched. Later, long after the room emptied, one thing was clear. It wasn't authority that changed the outcome. It wasn't volume or confidence.